Saudi Arabia is a country in the Middle East bordered by Egypt, Sudan, Iraq, Iran, Ethiopia, Jordan, Yemen, and Oman. The official language of Saudi Arabia is Arabic, with Najdi, Hijazi, and Gulf being the primary variants. Saudi Arabia is the birthplace of Islam and the location of Mecca and Medina, the two holiest cities in the Islam religion. The Saud family has been ruling the Arab region since the late 1700s. On May 20th, 1927, the United Kingdom accepted Abdulaziz Al Saud as the official king of the area, ruled by him. All the regions under his control were united to form the State of Saudi Arabia officially on September 23, 1932. Islam is the official religion of Saudi Arabia, and the law requires all citizens to be Muslim. The kingdom is sometimes referred to as the home of Islam. They use the Quran as their constitution, and the government recognizes the right of non-Muslims to worship in private. However, it does not always respect this practice and does not provide legal protection for freedom of religion.
Saudi Arabia is an arid sandy desert country located in the Middle East. With a size of around 2.2 million square miles, Saudi Arabia is the largest country on the Arabian Peninsula. Tensions are tight between their neighbors as there is a security border on the Saudi-Yemen border. The border wall, which was supposed to be a solid concrete barrier spanning the whole border to deal with infiltration, is now just mostly a chain-link fence. Saudi Arabia also claims the Egyptian islands of Tiran and Sanafir, located in the northwest Gulf between Egypt and Saudi Arabia. These two islands have been caused land disputes since the end of World War II. Saudi Arabia has four major cities: Riyadh, which is the capital city; Jeddah, the economic center; Mecca, Islam's holy city; and Medina, which is home to the Prophet's mosque. The harsh desert terrain covers most of Saudi Arabia, with clusters of metropolitan areas. Saudi Arabia, which has one of the highest temperature averages in the world, with an average of 113 degrees Fahrenheit in the summer and 85 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter. Extreme temperatures make gathering key natural resources such as petroleum, natural gas, iron ore, and gold very difficult. Despite the weather, however, the trading of these natural resources have turned the port cities in Jeddah and Yanbu into huge economic hubs.
Saudi Arabia has a population today of about 32,742,664 people in the country. Currently, 55.2% of this population is male, while the remaining 44.8% are females. Population density per square mile is about 14.627. In the year 1950, Saudi Arabia has a population growth of 2.72 from the year before, and in 1982, they had a population growth of 6.54%.
Due to future projections, in the future, it's projected that the population will continue to grow. Apparently, according to the media, they're saying that in the year 2025, the same amount of people will be in Saudi Arabia, about that 36 million number. And then by the year 2050, it'll increase by about 10 million to about 46 million, 59,000 people we're going to be projected to be living there. Right now, the average population annual growth rate is about 2.09%. This means that they'll just continue to grow slowly, steadily by each year.
Next, what we have is the birth rate, and that is per 1,000 people, there's 18.4% births. Life expectancy is about 74.3 years old, and the death rate is looking at about 7.748 deaths per 1,000 people.
So This is actually surprisingly higher than the world average. Since the leading cause of death between males and females was about 21.7%, the infant mortality rate is about 12.5 deaths per 1,000 live births, with the highest cause of death being prematurity for those infant mortality rates. The death rate is about 7.7%, or 7.7 deaths per 1,000 people. And the highest cause of death is heart disease, killing about 21.7 of the population from 2012.
The national currency of Saudi Arabia is the Saudi Riyal, which equals about 27 cents in US dollars. Like the currency of the United States, the Riyal comes in forms of coins as well as bills. The bills range from 1 to 500 Riyals, and the coins range from 1 to 100. At the official exchange rate, the GDP of Saudi Arabia is around 637.8 billion. The GDP per capita is 54,100, with a world rank of 21st. Saudi Arabia has an annual inflation rate of 2.2, which is relatively average when looking at the past few years, with the highest being in 2008, where the rate was 9.9. Most countries try to keep the rate between 2 to 3% every year. When looking at imports and exports, Saudi Arabia comes in as the 25th largest exporter in the world. In the fourth quarter of 2016, Saudi Arabian exports increased to 193,479 million SAR, which would compare to around 51 million US dollars. The United States, in comparison, is ranked 7th in the world with 1.47 trillion. The largest good exporter from Saudi Arabia is oil, which controls most of the country's economy. The overall quality of life index in Saudi Arabia is 143.25, ranking them 31st out of 67 countries in the world, meaning that they're around the average with the rest of the world. The highest quality of life was Austria at 190.37, and the lowest was Venezuela with a 0.0. In comparison to the United States, with ranking 7th in the world with a 179.73.
For the basic consumer profile, the literacy rate is extremely high in Saudi Arabia at 99% for the male population and 97% of the female population. Saudi Arabians do not have a lot of internet access, and only 35%. However, the total internet usage as a country is well over half. Cell phones, on the other hand, are a different story at 64.7%. The fixed landline ownership percentage is extremely low at 11.65%, but the cell phone ownership is high at 61%. Saudi Arabia has an exceptionally high rate of access to electricity at 97.698%, up from 87.2% in 1990. Access to clean and drinkable water in the country is remarkably high at 97%, which is up 5% from 1990. The percent of the population that owns a vehicle is particularly high at 86%. The consumer price index of Saudi Arabia in January of 2017 was 136.5 index points. Only 30% of people own houses in the country. The other 70% of the population are currently renting houses. The percentage of income spent on housing is only 14.5%. Saudi Arabians on average spend 23.7% of income on food. The access to the population has low to doctors at low at only 2.49 physicians per 1,000 people.
The hosted culture profile of Saudi Arabia is not similar to US. Saudi Arabia has the highest PDI score of any country in the world. It is 90. It is 95. This means there is inequality in family, organizations and institutions, government and social class. Saudi Arabia culture accepts the fact and they don't resist. There is a big difference between rich and poor and also senior and junior. A major reason Saudi Arabia has such a high PDI score is because the women in their society has limited rights and there is no freedom of religion. The number of individualism is not so high. People within this culture rely on one another, and this is most prevalent within the family dynamic. According to our interviewee, family is one of the most important centers within the social framework. He said he meets with his extended family at least once a week, and there is a big family gathering with everyone at least once a month. During this family gathering, everyone gets together to see one another and discuss important family matters. People within Saudi Arabia culture rely heavily on the opinions of their extended family. In countries with high individual score, people would not typically care about the opinions of their uncle. However, in Saudi Arabia, every family member's opinions are important. Saudi Arabia has a 60 masculinity score. Our interviewee told us whenever he goes home, he tends to spend more time with his uncles and male cousins. When the family meets him, when family meets, he said how the males will be separate from the women. When the food is being prepared, the women stay in the kitchen and cook and talk while the men do the same in a separate room. Then the family comes together to eat around 3 p.m. and when the sun sets around 5 p.m. everyone departs. In Saudi Arabia, men have most of the power over the women. The interview said women in the United States can do more than women from Saudi Arabia. There are some things that women cannot do without permission. If they break rules, there are strongly punishable consequences. Interviewee explained how women in Saudi Arabia did not really work jobs 5 years ago. Most of women work for their house and child. Recently, more women have started to get jobs. Saudi Arabia has a very high uncertainty avoidance, and it is an important aspect of daily life in Saudi Arabia due to the very religious background. Interview said if you do something bad, it reflects on your family, so you don't want to make your family look bad. Everyday life in Saudi Arabia revolved around the Islamic religion. Anything that can be seen against their religion can be a punishable offense.